Welcome to Cloud Automation. In the previous section, we looked at Amazon CLI command line interface to manage and manipulate our EC2 instances and S3 bucket. We looked at AWS SDK to manage our EC2 instances and S3 buckets. Now we want to look at a configuration management tool that can be used to install applications on those instances. It can be used to make our instances comply with the policies that we set. And configuration management tools like Ansible lets us group the host, specify the host that we want to interact with, and install what's known as playbooks or custom applications, create users, or install applications on top of the EC2 instances. We look at some of the sample playbooks that we could use on these EC2 instances. We'll figure out how to run this Ansible command in two modes. The first mode we talk about is called Ansible ad hoc model. Next, we'll look at how to create playbooks and how to run the playbooks against our instances. We'll look at some of the Ansible templates, and finally we'll talk about Ansible Vault, how we can securely store sensitive information like username, password, license strings in what's known as Ansible Vault. Ansible is a configuration management tool and also a provisioning tool. It can be used to deploy the applications on our EC2 instances. So for instance, if you have a group of servers, if you have a group of web servers, you want specific applications to be installed on that instances. You want certain users to be created, certain files to be created, certain directories to be created, and these applications need to be installed in a specific order for it to be called a web server. Similarly, for a database server, you need to install a specific version of database. You need to create a different set of users potentially. You need to set up the backups for that database server. So there are certain tasks that you want to do and a different set of servers. And on some applications, there are common tasks that you want to run. Install patches regularly, for instance, install the administrative accounts, and install common tools that can be spread across multiple types of servers. For instance, if you are thinking about using NTP, a network time protocol, to be installed across various servers, you have something called a common playbook, common packages you install across multiple servers. But there are some servers you want to set up in a specific way. And that's where tools like Ansible, Chef, and Puppet come into picture. Ansible is an open source version. They have a commercial version you can use in your company. One of the main primary selling point of Ansible is it's an agentless system. That means you don't need to install any agents on the nodes that you are trying to manage. We communicate to the instances using the SSH protocol, so that makes it easy to get started with Ansible very quickly. You don't need any software to be installed on the instances that you're trying to manage. Ansible also lets us run idempotent applications or playbooks. That means the same playbooks can be applied multiple times without any negative impact. And like I mentioned, we use SSH to manage the instances. So we just need to have one workstation that's considered our management server, and we use SSH authentication to manage and access all our instances in our environment. There's no complicated server installation. Everything can be done from the one management server or even your laptop, and then you can manage hundreds of servers in cloud or even non-cloud environment. Ansible is gaining a lot of popularity because it's considered a lot simpler than tools like Chef and Puppet. Chef and Puppet have been around for a long time, for more than 10 years, and they have a lot of following, lot of documentation, but they're considered, there's a very steep learning curve when you want to use Chef and Puppet. Ansible, on the other hand, is considered very simpler to use, and you can get started literally within a couple of hours of your introduction. So now that we know what Ansible is, how do we tell what is the IP address or host names of the instances that we want to manage? Ansible uses a file called an inventory file, which specifies, hey, executes these playbooks on these group of nodes. So essentially this inventory file is a list of IP addresses or host names that are specified one line at a time. So hosts can also be grouped together. If you have few web servers, application servers, or a database servers, or a proxy servers, you can group them. You can say these 4 servers are my web servers, the next 2 servers are my application servers, and the next couple of them are my database servers. And you can, when you run these playbooks, you can choose what type of servers or what group of servers you want that playbook to be applied. The inventory is written in the INI style or INI format. So a sample inventory file, Ansible inventory file, I have a DB servers group of servers. I have 2 IP addresses listed there. I have a web servers group, and I have 2 EC2 instances listed there. So when I want to run specific playbooks or specific commands against the list of database servers or the list of web servers, I can choose that group when I'm running it. So let's see how to run the Ansible command. Again, this is known as Ansible ad hoc commands. Now I'm saying I want to run this Ansible command against all my database servers, and the command or the module that I want to run is just a ping. I just want to ping all the database servers to make sure they're up and running. If you want to run Ansible against all the hosts, so now I'm using this module, which is the module is the command, and I'm executing the command uptime. So now Ansible goes across all the servers that are specified in the inventory file, in the default inventory file, and runs this command called uptime. It's essentially saying, asking, uptime is a Unix command that shows that, or that tells how long the server has been up. Now if you want to run this command against only web servers, so I'm saying Ansible web servers, the module is service, the name of the module is service, and I want to make sure the name Apache 2 service is in a started state. So that means I want to ensure that Apache service is running across on all my web servers. So that's the Ansible ad hoc commands. So as you've been seen here, we have introduced you 3 modules: the ping module, the command module with the -m, and the service module. Ansible has over 200 modules that do specific things. So some of the modules are to install a package, to install an application, to run a command that we just saw, -m command, to create a file, to create a directory, and so on. And these are called tasks because they do the actual work. The modules actually do the work. So there can be, sometimes you might see them referred as the tasks. There are over 200 modules included with Ansible, and modules are, if you're familiar with Chef, they are equivalent to Chef resources. If you have a specific requirement that are not satisfied with these 200 modules, you can write your own custom modules in any language of your choice. So the commands that we executed earlier, -m ping and -m command, are one-time action. What if you want to run these commands or set of tasks on a frequent basis? That's where Ansible playbook comes into picture. So you essentially create a file that defines the state the instance has to be. So this is a file that includes the group of tasks or the modules that you want to execute on a set of servers. These playbooks, as they are known, is written in YAML language, yet another markup language. And typically when you are creating these playbooks, we create one playbook to do one thing. So for instance, one playbook just installs Apache and configures it. Another playbook installs the database server and configures it. One playbook might create the users, and so on and so forth. So you want to have a modular framework when you're writing this Ansible playbook. And what we do is we take multiple playbooks and apply it to a host. For instance, like I said, each playbook is designed to achieve one task. So one task may be to install an Apache server. So let's look at a sample playbook. This is the YAML format, YML extension, and the first line includes the 3 dashes that indicates this is a YAML file. And I want to execute these tasks against my web servers. And these are the tasks I want to execute. I want to install the Apache package using apt. and I want to make sure the Apache package is present. I want to ensure that the Apache service is running and the state is started. So the Apache service is enabled and the state is started. And I want to create my Apache configuration file in etc apache2.conf, but I want to use a template, and that template, the name of the template is apache.j2. We'll talk about the templates in a second, but the templates are written in a specific language in Ansible. We'll talk about templates in a second. Whenever this template changes, let's say you modify this, we want to notify Apache so that any changes that are modified in this file gets reapplied immediately. So whenever you change this apache2.conf file, we want to restart Apache so the changes get they get all the changes get incorporated in the version of Apache we are running. So this is a sample playbook that installs the Apache package, make sure the service is installed and running, and we create a template. We create the configuration file for Apache called apache2.conf in /etc directory, and whenever this file gets changed, we want to restart Apache, and the way we restart Apache is to call this service apache2, and the state we want to make sure it's restarted. Again, this command is not run every time we run this playbook, but it's run only when this file gets changed. So we have a control host. This could be your laptop or it could be your management station, and this is where we create the playbooks, and this is where we have that host inventory file that we discussed. Now we have a group of servers. These are my database servers. So this is my this group is called my DB servers, and these servers in blue are my web servers. So I want specific packages that are installed on my web servers. I want specific packages that are installed on my database server. So I can specify which packages get installed on which server based on this grouping that I created in my inventory file. So in summary, a playbook is that the blue shaded area of this is the entire YAML file, and each of these actions are called play. These are what all we need to get done is the list of things we want to achieve on this instance. That's called a play, and that's in the pink shaded area. And each of these individual modules or tasks that we want to install that want to execute on that instance are the tasks. So essentially, a play is a group of tasks, and a playbook can have one or more plays. So typically there is only one play, but you can have one or more plays in a playbook. So Ansible templates are used to create dynamic files. Like we saw earlier in the Apache configuration, we want to create a configuration file that uses some static content and some content that is specific to that instance. For instance, when you're creating a configuration file, you want to specify the database username, the database password, and things that change for every instance. So these parameters are passed as variables to this template, and when Ansible creates this template on the instance, it uses these parameters, these variables that you passed, and creates the file dynamically on the fly. And this template is written in a format called Jinja2 with the extension .j2. And the Jinja2 format is it's a powerful templating language. It allows us to pass variables, and it allows us to run conditional loops, so you can create a very dynamic page on the fly based on the parameters you specify. So let's look at an example template. So let's look at a sample template. In my Apache playbook, I have defined variables that are called Apache vhost. I'm defining the name of the server, www.example.com. I'm specifying the document root as /var/www/html. So this is in the playbook. I'm defining my variables. In my template, apache.j2 template file, I'm using the variables that I had passed. So in this case, I'm saying the server name that was passed I'm getting the value of that variable that I had passed using these two curly braces. Anything that is in those two curly braces gets substituted by the variable that I had passed. And the document root was also passed, and that value gets substituted here. So you're basically creating placeholders for the variables that you are passing in another place. So now we saw how to run the Ansible ad hoc commands. Now Ansible-playbook is another command that can be used to run these playbooks. Now you want to say Ansible-playbook, that's the name of the command to run the playbook, and you want to give the name of the playbook to be run against the instance. So for example, you want to say Ansible-playbook, I want to run it against -l my group, and this is the name of the playbook I want to appear. So this could be your web server group or DB group, and you want to run this playbook against this group, and this is the name of the playbook file. So finally, let's look at Ansible Vault. Ansible Vault allows you to store sensitive information like username, password, license string in an encrypted AES 256 format. So the way to use Ansible Vault is to run this Ansible Vault command when you create the playbook. When you create the YAML file, it prompts for the password, and when you run it, you need to specify that password for it to be accessed in the playbooks. So in summary, we looked at Ansible. We found out what it is, what it does. We looked at the hosts inventory file. We looked at how to group our hosts in the inventory file. We looked at the syntax of how to write Ansible playbooks, and we saw some of sample playbooks. We figured out how to run Ansible command, the ad hoc command, as well as the Ansible playbook command. We looked at the difference between the playbook, the play, and the task, and we looked at Ansible templates and Ansible Vault.